What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. And on today's episode, I have a very special guest joining me, Blake Jude. How you doing today, Blake?
Doing amazing. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in this video, we are live on YouTube, and we're going to be discussing our NFL awards for the season. So, you were able to join me. You were actually my first guest on the show, and we did player awards to begin the year in the preseason before the regular season started. And the picks we had back then are much different than the picks we had now, especially my MVP pick.
Yeah, I fondly remember that. Remember your MVP pick. That was pretty bold.
Yeah, that was a stupid pick. It was more so, if it happens, I'm the person who called it. But if not, I look like the biggest. I look like a stupid person talking about sports.
It was a risky pick though, and I commend you for it because a lot of people want to go with the safe pick, and I pretty much went the safe pick. So I don't blame you for going different. But looking back on it now, it is pretty funny because I don't know if you want me to tell who it is or not, but guy pretty much went from being your MVP candidate to being possibly drafted over being a backup next year.
So, in case y'all don't know who it is, it's Drew Lock, who completely sucked this year, and he's not even for sure going to be the starter for Denver next season.
Trey Lance.
So, that was just horrible. And I remember for our offensive rookie of the year, we both picked Joe Burrow. And with obviously, Joe Burrow getting hurt against Washington is out for the year. We probably don't have Burrow as our offensive rookie of the year, but who is your offensive rookie of the year this year?
Well, I just want to preface by saying I think had Burrow not gotten hurt against Washington, I'd probably list him as offensive rookie of the year. Despite Herbert having a fantastic season, Burrow was right on par with him for a good bit of the season with a much worse roster. Let's be honest. The Chargers have much better pieces around Justin Herbert than what Joe Burrow does. And Burrow had a lot of pressure in his face the entire time he eventually got injured. But this was a couple of easier games going through the rest of the season. You had the Houston Texans team, which was terrible all around, a Pittsburgh Steelers team that was struggling big time. And then you also had Dallas, New York, and the Washington, of course, in that game, which were all winnable games for Joe Burrow, some of the easiest games of the season for Cincinnati. I think had Burrow not gotten hurt, he would have had definitely a strong end of the season and likely would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year here. But since he did not, I'm picking Justin Herbert for this award. I think this is a consensus pick for the most part. Herbert was fantastic throughout his season with Los Angeles. Had a lot of pressure in his face, but stayed poised. Threw for 300 yards in a lot of games, and actually hung in there with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes for one of those games. So, despite the record and what it showed, I was very impressed with Herbert. Look at his stats, his advanced metrics, all around. What he did, despite having a lot of pressure in his face, was fantastic. And he looks like he will be a fantastic quarterback to come. He might have already entered himself in that top 10 quarterback conversation just off of his rookie year. I was very impressed. I liked him a lot going into the draft. I actually had him higher ranked than Tua Tagovailoa. And I thought he performed exactly how I expected he would year two. I thought he might have needed a year to improve, but we saw Tyrod Taylor into this season. First couple of games really didn't work out, so they moved on. And Herbert came in and immediately was 10 times better than Tyrod Taylor. It's just once that Chargers build up the rest of their team around Herbert, he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, my pick is Justin Herbert as well. Probably had the best season for a quarterback ever as a rookie, but if Burrow didn't get hurt, it would be much closer. I would not trying to be biased, but the way, like you said, Burrow does not have nearly as talented roster. I would probably have given it to Burrow if he didn't get hurt. Herbert had a tremendous season, and I agree with everything you said. But to me, I think it's much closer than people think. Justin Jefferson had the rookie record for most yards in a season. He had a phenomenal season. But to me, the most underrated rookie, and offense or defense, it doesn't really matter, is easily Jaguars running back James Robinson. James Robinson wasn't even drafted. He had nearly 1,500 yards, and he played in just 14 games. He had 7 rushing touchdowns, and he had 3 receiving touchdowns. a undrafted free agent running back on the worst team in the NFL. They lose 15 straight games. So, he's not going to be running the ball a ton, but still able to manage to have over 1,000 rushing yards. And he had the three receiving touchdowns he had, that's as many as Julio Jones had this season. That's just absolutely crazy to compare him. But I do agree with you with Herbert. He had a phenomenal year. Should be Herbert. I mean, but to me, I do think it's closer than people think it is.
I got to give a lot of credit to James Robinson. He's been fantastic, and for especially for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's, let's be real, he's going to be a Jaguar next year. It's fantastic to have a guy like James Robinson who, can be a bell cow for your team, and for that to be an undrafted guy. I mean, this is the best undrafted free agent we have probably seen since Philip Lindsay. Let's be real, and I think he's even better than Lindsay, if you ask me, based on what I saw this season. 1,500 yards, was third in the NFL this year, behind Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, who had unreal seasons this year. Both were like 1,800 plus yards, and I know Derrick Henry, of course, broke the 2,000 mark. But James Robinson, like you said, 14 games, he could have gotten realistically more than Dalvin Cook and possibly even close to Derrick Henry if he played all 16 games this season, which is astounding to think about. I was very impressed with his, season, especially with, not a bad necessarily, but not a great offensive line in Jacksonville either. It's not fantastic or anything like to say compared to Derrick Henry's offensive line. I think, the Jaguars are probably a step down from the Titans when it comes to offensive line performance. So I was very impressed with him. If the Jaguars can continue to build up the offensive line and get Trevor Lawrence to match with James Robinson, that production is going to even get better, especially in the receiving game. So I think Jacksonville's starting to build something a little bit. They have a lot of cap space, a lot of different places they can go. And James Robinson is going to continue to be a very successful running back there. I agree with you. I think he's probably definitely at least the secondary the winner, or at least the runner up. But I think Herbert's still technically, at least in my opinion, the winner, just because they usually always give to quarterback anyways. And of course, we'll have to see if they do that again. But for now, I think Herbert's season was just, when I think of rookie of the year, I think the person had the biggest impact. And I think since Herbert was on a team that's at least a little bit more successful and was pretty much the reason why they were winning more games, I'll have to give it to him.
Yeah, the Chargers, the end of the season on the high note, I believe they won their last 3 or 4 games or something like that. They have a really nice future, and you said the Jaguars. I mean, they have 2 first-round picks. I think they might have 2 second-round picks. There's lots of potential for Jacksonville, in the future. Obviously, they're going to draft Trevor Lawrence, and, Robinson's production next season will probably be even higher. So as we go to, defensive rookie of the year, when we did our picks back in August, another bold pick, I had Patrick Queen. I really liked Queen coming out. I thought he was going to be a really nice, guy for Baltimore. But, he didn't have a bad season. But, I mean, the obvious pick was Chase Young. I just decided not to do it. But now, I mean, once the season's over, my defensive rookie of the year, I mean, it's Chase Young. He had over 7 sacks. He had lots of tackles for loss. Really helped that Washington defense to make the playoffs. Almost come close, beating Tampa Bay in the playoffs. Somebody else give credit to is Jeremy Chin, the safety of the Panthers. He had over 100 tackles this season. Also had 2 defensive touchdowns. He was really good this year, but it kind of gets overshadowed by a great play of Chase Young. But my defensive rookie of the year this season would be Chase Young.
Yeah, again, I have to agree with you here. I think Young is probably defensive rookie of the year because that whole entire defense for Washington, the Washington football team, single-handedly pushed him into the playoffs. That defensive line, with the addition of Chase Young, completely pretty much made their defense one of the best in the NFL. And even with Taylor Heineke, actually played a really good game against now the Super Bowl contenders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who of course are going against the Chiefs this weekend. So very impressive to see Young really kind of convert this entire Washington defense into being a viable playoff caliber defense. So I'll give it to him as well. But another guy I like to mention, Antoine Winfield, the guy from Tampa Bay as well, playing safety, really has been their captain, their leader in the secondary this season. And though that's a little bit of their weaker spot on the defense, he has still managed to have a fantastic season with a lot of turnovers, has been on every single play pretty much. He has had been one of the better safeties in the league, along with Jeremy Chin. So I'll have to give him another runner as well. But as for Jeremy Chin, without a doubt, probably the best player last year on this year on Carolina's defense too. So he's another guy I would definitely like to mention as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Antoine Winfield. He had a great season this season. Coming out of the draft, I know you were high on him. Wasn't he your number one safety?
He was. Yep. I had Antoine Winfield above Xavier McKinney and several other guys. So and Grant Delpit as well. So I was pretty proud of that to be able to be on that high. And Jeremy Chin was actually my safety 3 as well. So I'm pretty happy with that. Xavier McKinney was my second safety in the draft, and he ended up being hurt the entire season. So, I guess jury's still out on him, but I was very happy with my safety rankings for that draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had a great year. I mean, Chin had a great year as well. And we kind of mentioned, Washington with Chase Young being Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year. I would say with Washington. I mean, give it Alex Smith. I mean, he really shouldn't even be playing football right now due to how severe his injury was. With the great doctors he had and everything, and that rehab that he had, he was able to play this year. I mean, I know he wasn't able to. He didn't play in the playoffs, but he was able to help Washington, go to the playoffs. They've not done that, I believe, since 4 or 5 years or something like that. But I was really impressed with Alex Smith. I know there's a couple. I mean, I know it's not people watching this, but I know some people who say maybe Roethlisberger or something like that. But I mean, this is probably the most obvious pick, in my opinion, out of every single thing we're doing here. It has to be Alex Smith, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's more storyline, if anything. I mean, Alex Smith almost died from his injury. That was how major it was. And for him to come back and be as effective as he was for Washington, I mean, again, he was their playoff quarterback. He was the quarterback that won them the most games and actually sent them to the playoffs. Based off of that and how honestly poor the rest of the offense is in Washington is extremely impressive. He managed to be very successful, especially in his short throws to guys like J.D. McKissick and Otinio Gibson, who are huge for the team this year, Terry McLaurin as well, and Steven Sims, Cam Sims, that entire offense. He managed to spread the ball around and let everyone get their own and be successful with it. And I was very impressed with him, despite the struggles he had occasionally with throwing the ball deep. He was still managed to be very, very accurate and successful whenever needed. So I'm going to give a lot of credit to Alex Smith. That's my award for him as well. I would definitely give it to him over Roethlisberger. I think had Ben actually not completely regressed a bunch in the last couple of games of the season, he might have been the winner of this award. Of course, Steelers had a very, very hot start to begin the season. Big Ben was playing extremely well, and then all of a sudden, actually against Washington, everything fell apart. And then the Bengals, of course, kicked them in, and a bunch of other teams, and they lose first round to the Cleveland Browns. So things kind of fell apart in the end for Pittsburgh, which is why I think Alex Smith actually deserves the award over Big Ben.
So you mentioned the Browns, and I mean we've talked Washington. Somebody from Washington's been our pick for the last 2 picks here. Crap. So Coach of the Year to me, it's really, really close. Who would you say is your Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin Stefanski's definitely in the question for it. I think he could be the award winner. I'm actually going to go a little bit off basis here. I'm going to give it to Sean McDermott for the Buffalo Bills. I was very impressed with how he performed this year, and especially seeing, Josh Allen's progression. I'm not sure if we're going to cover it yet, but I think he has been the most improved player in the league this year. Went from being a guy who had, I believe, 57% completion percentage, which is one of the worst in the league. A guy who really struggled to pass the ball consistently and occasionally struggled and had a lot of rookie mistakes. Completely turned around this year. Was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top of MVP voting. Of course, he's probably going to go to Rodgers, but I think you'll probably see Allen at least in the top 5, if not top 3. He completely reversed his entire game this year. And of course, the Bills ended up making it to the conference championship and lost to the Chiefs, unfortunately, but was still played a very, very good game and it was very successful and went deep in the playoffs. So I think McDermott did a lot for Buffalo this year. They continued to get better and better, and they won their division this year handedly, I think, and really went to the playoffs and really were the second best team in the AFC. And I think it was pretty much a consensus that they were. The Chiefs are just built different, so unfortunately they couldn't make it any further than that. But I think when you see how much Buffalo improved from last year to this year, I think I'm going to give it to McDermott.
Yeah, that's a great pick there. I'm not trying to be, anti-biased because we're Bengal fans, but I do think, Kevin Stefanski, he definitely is in the top two. I mean, if somebody says Stefanski would win it or he does win it, I have nothing, against that. But to me, I know that they were under 500. I'm going to give it to Ron Rivera. I mean, he had cancer like during his time coaching. He had to deal, with Alex Smith coming back from an injury, who, like we said, could have died from his injury. He had to deal with, Dwayne Haskins and all that. And, he's no longer on the team. And I think he did the smart thing by, releasing Haskins and what was best for the team. And I know they didn't win a playoff game. I know they didn't, they weren't even 500. They were one of the worst divisions of all time this past season. But Rivera did do a great job. I would give it to him. But Stefanski, I mean, he did a phenomenal job, far better than I thought he was going to do. I didn't think the Browns would get 8 or 9 wins. They nearly beat the defending champs in the playoffs. I mean, it's very, very impressive by Cleveland. I think he's going to do a great job there. But to me, I would just give it to Ron Rivera because he's had so much adversity and he's had to go through so much more, in my opinion, than any other coach in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Rivera's been through a lot this year, battling cancer on top of being a coach for a franchise who entering this season we thought were falling apart. All the issues that happened with their name this year, having to switch names to the football team, on top of the issues with the front office and the owner, of course, with all the allegations he had. A lot of players wanted to avoid going there to avoid those issues. Dwayne Haskins was, of course, a huge distraction. Ron Rivera managed to calm them all down, get a guy who, like you said, almost died from an injury, brought him to be the starting quarterback for this season, brought a bunch of rookies together. You have Antonio Gibson, Chase Young, all these guys, and built a team from scratch, basically, with the guy. A lot of guys this year thought, right, or the football team is going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Made them a playoff team, and granted, of course, like you said, not a great division. But, of course, the injury with Dak Prescott, the issues with Carson Wentz, the Eagles and Cowboys both fell apart. But Washington stayed together, and going 7-9 is a fantastic record from what we thought they were. I believe in my season prediction for Washington, I had them going 3-13 or 2-14, one of the two. So definitely outperformed my expectations, and I think it definitely deserves some sort of reward for Ron Rivera.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see Washington. I mean, in my opinion, if they get a quarterback, a good quarterback, like if they trade for like Deshaun Watson or something like that, which to me, I think they should do. I know it might sound crazy. They're Super Bowl contenders, like easily. I mean, they had so many like players who were good, but they didn't really have many household names. And I know they were under 500, but they have. I mean, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Chase Young. They have a great young defense. Terry McLaurin is really underrated. And Gibson, like you mentioned, the running back had a really nice year. It's going to be really interesting to see, how Rivera and Washington plays next year. So our offensive player of the year award, I'm not totally for sure. I think I had Patrick Mahomes win this, but to me, I'm going to give it to Derrick Henry. If Aaron Rodgers did not have a season like he did, I think Henry would be much more consideration to win the MVP. But he's not a quarterback, so he's probably not going to win. I mean, he had over 2,000 rushing yards. But I mean, the Titans go through Henry. I mean, if Henry's having a good game, the Titans are more than likely going to win. If Henry doesn't play good, the Titans are going to win. It's really that simple. He had a phenomenal season. And if you look at running backs and the statistical standpoints, I think we're going to look back like 5-10 years from now or something like that. I think this is going to be one of the most underrated seasons for a running back ever because he eclipsed the 2,000 yard mark. Nobody's talking about it because Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he had a great season, but he's not in the Super Bowl. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had a great season. Josh Allen had a great season. He's being overshadowed by 3 really good quarterbacks. But me, offensive player of the year will go to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, last time we saw a running back get 2,000 yards, that was Adrian Peterson in his MVP season. So Derrick Henry has definitely entered himself into this conversation. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry as well. I completely agree with what you said. I cannot I cannot underreact to the fact that Derrick Henry got 2,000 yards. Like, people don't understand how crazy that is. A 1,000-yard season for a running back is a fantastic season in NFL. He eclipsed that and doubled it. 2,000 yards. That is out of this world. Fantastic for any running back, and it's super impressive. And I think, honestly, had Aaron Rodgers not had the season he had, Derrick Henry might have been the MVP of the season. I also really want to get an honorable mention to not only Patrick Mahomes, but also one of his weapons, Travis Kelce. Had a fantastic season at tight end. Is far and away probably the best pass catcher, at least this season in the NFL. Was a complete monster. I mean, I'm not sure the exact stats. I believe he had close around 1,300 yards receiving, maybe even a little bit more than that. I don't have the stats pulled up right now, but was a monster, had a lot of touchdowns, was really the Chiefs' #1 target this season on top of Tyreek Hill. And really, I mean, was their complete safety blanket. Whenever they needed a catch, whenever they needed this touchdown, Travis Kelce got it. He was the reason why they got it. And his connection with Mahomes is fantastic. I mean, the biggest mismatch in the NFL is Travis Kelce. Not one person in this league can guard him. So I'll give it to Derrick Henry, but I want to give a huge honorable mention to Travis Kelce because I thought he had a fantastic season.
Yeah, Kelsey had a great season, and there's just like so many players this season had like phenomenal years, stat standpoints. I mean, Devontae Adams had one of the best seasons for a receiver for him and probably his career. Justin Jefferson had a really nice year for a rookie. I mean, there were so many players. Stephon Diggs, I mean, really helped. Josh Allen. Josh Allen maybe even offensive player of the year, but defensive player of the year. I don't really want to say it. But I guess I'll give it to T.J. Watt. I mean, he did have 15 sacks. I try my best to not give it to him, but it's just, I mean, he played too good not to give it to him. I mean, one of the best defensive players in the league, up there with, Aaron Donald and top players like that. Going into the year, I thought it was going to be Chandler Jones because, I mean, I really thought Chandler Jones was going to have a great year. And I believe we both picked Chandler Jones for this award.
Yep.
And, he got hurt. But the last 3 seasons, he averaged over a sack a game, which is just absolutely insane. You can't even get that, on a video game. But Watt, I mean, he had 15, which is basically a sack a game. Big part to that Pittsburgh defense. And I mean, even him playing defense and him having 15 sacks, take away Watt from Pittsburgh's defense. They don't have as many wins. He was a big part of the Steelers' success this season.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat as you. It's tough for me to pick T.J. Watt. I actually really thought about giving this reward to Xavier Howard of the Miami Dolphins, of course. I believe he had 8 picks this season, 7 or 8 picks, led the league and was a lockdown corner for Miami. But I agree with you. You cannot give this award to anyone else. T.J. Watt had an unreal season. I mean, 15 sacks itself is great, but he's also playing in coverage a lot too. He's an outside linebacker. He's a 3-4 linebacker. So the fact that he's able to attack and blitz and also be able to drop back in coverage and stop the run, he pretty much did everything. He was all over the field for Pittsburgh. And was a big reason why their defense was as elite as it was. He allowed a lot of space for Bud Dupree to find success. He caused a lot of pressure, allowing the corners like Steven Nelson, Joe Hayden, even the safeties like Minka Fitzpatrick to find success, get turnovers. I mean, if anything good happened for the Steelers on defense, T.J. Watt was involved. So I'm going to give it to T.J. Watt as well. I also think Myles Garrett, had he not had, I believe he was bouncing around a couple of games with injuries and stuff like that. Had he not had that, he definitely would have been in this conversation as well. But Watt, especially with the end of the season run he had, was very impressive, and I'll have to give it to him because of it.
I'm not saying he should win it, but I'm saying he should be considered. Jesse Bates. I mean, I'm not going to say he should win it, and I'm not trying to be biased, but I mean, look at the ratings and everything. He was the best safety in football this year, and it wasn't even close. And the fact that he wasn't named to the Pro Bowl, but Minka Fitzpatrick was. And Fitzpatrick was not even the best safety in the division. I mean, Bates did have a phenomenal year, and there was just so many players who really had underrated performances. For instance, I mean, Devin White had 140 tackles this season and 9 sacks. I mean, there was just so many players who had really great years, great seasons, but they're not really talked about because, they might not be on a good team. But speaking of good, not good teams, Who would you say this season was your most disappointing team?
Yeah, there were a lot of teams who I thought would perform a bit better than what I expected. At the same time, this is another tough one for me because I'm really considering two teams right now, both in the same division. I look towards Dallas, and despite them having such a poor record compared to what I figured they were, I might actually give them a bit of a pass here because Dak Prescott's injury really affected them, and this might have not been nearly as bad of a season if it wasn't for that. So instead, I'm actually going to give to Philadelphia this season because really, Philadelphia still had Carson Wentz. I was expecting them to still be good with Carson Wentz, and the fact that they dropped off so much this season was really disappointing overall. They have a fantastic roster, I think, at least in certain aspects. The defensive line is one of the best in the league. And of course, you have Darius Slay, who's a fantastic cornerback. They have potential. They have great players on this team. And of course, their offensive line got a little bit banged up, and we saw a little bit more pressure happening to Philadelphia or to Carson Wentz. But the overall just the decrease in play between Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz and really all the wide receivers as a whole was really disappointing, as well as even Miles Sanders, who is thought to be one of the better improved running backs this season. Just the whole entire offense just could not generate any points. And we even saw halfway through the season, Jalen Hurts gets subbed in for Carson Wentz and really finishes the season. So, this team completely fell apart, and I thought they had the roster to make the playoffs. I thought this was a team that could go 10-6, 11-5, and still make the playoffs. And unfortunately, completely flipped it around. Is the worst team in the NFC East. Finished in the last place in that division, and is now picking 6 overall in the draft. Just a complete turnaround of what I was expecting this season. And, they still had a lot of injuries, but not nearly as much as what Dallas had, losing their starting quarterback. So I'm going to give to Philadelphia because I thought they were going to perform a lot better.
Yeah, it's crazy with Philadelphia because going the season, I picked them to win the NFC East. But you said Wentz, Ertz, also Kelsey. All three of those guys are probably not going to be on their team next season. It's just crazy how 1 year can completely change your franchise. They had a bad year, but let's say they had a horrendous season. They're not picking the top 5. That just kind of proves how much teams, are determined to win. Doug Peterson was fired from a Super Bowl just a couple years ago. But my disappointing team, there's 2 teams. I'll give it to the I don't know. I was high on the Broncos because I was high on the Drew Lock train, which was I don't even know what to say, but it was just stupid. But I legit thought the Broncos were going to be really good this past season because Drew Lock was 4-1 at the start of the year prior. I'm just trying not to laugh because it's pretty embarrassing just saying it. But Philip Lindsay, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Von Miller, Simmons on the defensive side of the ball. They have a really, really good team. Melvin Gordon as well, AJ Hamler. They have a young team that just people weren't really talking about it. And I believe the year prior they were 7-9, so I thought they could be better. I picked them to be I think 10-6 or 11-5, something like that. But the other team to me was the Falcons. They won 6 of their last 8 games in the season. Not this year, but the year prior. They get Todd Gurley, finally a consistent running back, and then they're picking 4th. I know you play Drew Brees and the Saints, who are going to be in the playoffs every year, and you're playing the best quarterback of all time, and Tom Brady. So in that aspect, I would kind of give them a slight more of an excuse, but 4-1 is horrible. So there was also injuries to the Broncos because Cortland Sutton, was hurt. Drew Lock was hurt, but I still don't think that would have been enough to give him the MVP. I'm not totally for sure about that. But Von Miller was hurt as well. He had lots of injuries, but it's back and forth. I guess I give it to the Falcons, but it's about a tie to me. Both of those teams were just very, very disappointing.
Yeah, on the side of Denver, just Von Miller, of course, missing that season was a huge issue for Denver, and of course Bradley Chubb being able to stay healthy, it was just a mixture of a lot of things. Jerry Jeudy, despite being one of the highly touted receivers in the draft, I believe had one of the lowest quarterback ratings whenever targeted in the league, which is a pretty important stat for wide receivers. I believe it was around 59, 60 quarterback rating, which isn't very great. Just to share. But I think overall it was a mixture of a lot of things for Denver. I'm questioning whether or not Vic Fangio is the ideal coach for you down there. As for the Falcons, I think entering the season, I had a lot of question marks personally on their defense. I thought their defense was definitely going to be an issue, and it turned out to be for a majority of the season. Ended up firing their head coach and now signing Arthur Smith, the Titans' offensive coordinator, to a deal. I think this is finally the season where we see the Falcons somewhat improve since their Super Bowl season. So because they've been slowly regressing since then, we've been seeing a lot of decrease in Julio Jones and Matt Ryan's play. I think now is when you reset, look towards possibly getting a new quarterback, a new offense, and working around Calvin Ridley and some of your younger leaders.
Yeah, both those teams really disappointing. Also, the Eagles as well. You mentioned quarterback at the Falcons at number 4. It'd be really interesting to see, if Fields or Wilson, if they go number 2, whichever one possibly will go to the Atlanta Falcons at number 4. So, who would you say was your biggest surprise team this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys I want to give honorable mentions to, I guess. But overall, I think my most surprising team, at least personally, had to be the Los Angeles Rams. I liked the Rams entering this season. I did, but that was a very, very strong division at the time. San Francisco just coming off a Super Bowl loss. We see Arizona add DeAndre Hopkins on top of Kyler Murray entering a second season. And of course, Russell Wilson in the Seahawks adding Jamal Adams as well. I mean, this was a star-studded division in the NFC. And Rams really looked like the odd team out, even with the stars like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. A lot of question marks behind whether or not their offensive line was going to be enough, if Jared Goff himself was going to be enough, if they even had a good enough team to win anything. And the Rams completely exceeded expectations. I mean, I consider them personally to probably be third or fourth best team in that division, and they turn around and of course they're second in the division, almost tied for first had they not lost to Seattle at the end of the year, and on top of that made it very far, lost to Green Bay eventually in a fantastic game. I was really, really impressed with Sean McVay's poise this season with Los Angeles. I thought they were still going to finish probably with a 7-9, 8-8, maybe even 9-7 record, which speaks a lot to how great the division overall is. But I believe the record was around 12-4, I think, for the season, which is fantastic. Had they not had Seattle in their division, they would have won the division, and had a pretty good couple of games in the playoffs. So I was really impressed with their how much they improved off that one season. I was thinking that, maybe with a stronger division, maybe they'd even regress a little bit more in record compared to last season, going 9-7, but turn around, have a 12-4 record, played fantastic, made it pretty far in the playoffs. Now that they add Matthew Stafford, they are legitimate Super Bowl contender next year.
I believe they were 11-5. I think they had 3 one-possession losses, and I guess that'll be another topic. I forgot to mention that. We'll go ahead and talk about it. The Stafford and Goff trade. I'll talk about my surprise team in a minute. But last week, Stafford was traded to the Rams. Goff, 2 first-round picks and everything. What were your thoughts on the Stafford and Goff trade, and who do you believe, which team won the trade?
Yeah, so just some details. I believe it was Stafford traded to the Rams for a first-round pick in 2022, 2023, a third-round pick this year, and Jared Goff. So I think this is one of the rare trades in which I think this is one of the rare trades in which we actually see both teams win. Personally, I think both Detroit and LA have a win in this scenario. Matthew Stafford was unlikely to be a Lion next season anyways. He wanted out, and I think it was understandable on Matthew Stafford's part. The Lions trade him and get 2 first-round picks on top of a third-round pick this year and a bridge quarterback to save you for next season. So they're going to be able to prepare for a great quarterback maybe in 2022. They now have plenty of capital to add some other picks here in the future. This is exactly what the Lions needed, a full-on rebuild, similar to what the Dolphins are doing now with their rebuild, adding a lot of picks, having 2 first-round picks this year. They're going to be able to continue to add to their roster to get even better. I think the Lions are able to do the same now. As for LA never picks in the first round. We never see him pick in the first round anyway. So for them to be able to upgrade at quarterback, finally Sean McVay has the guy he wants in Matthew Stafford. Like I said, they're Super Bowl contenders now. So if I had to pick a winner, I might pick the Lions because I think they're better built for the future. And I still have question marks on whether or not Matthew Stafford's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But I definitely think that the Rams got better as well. And they really don't pick in the first round a lot anyway. So what were they going to do with the picks? I think personally the Rams won this trade just as much as the Lions. And I think this is almost a tie.
I completely agree. I know most people will probably say the Lions, won the trade because they had 2 first-round picks or, This trade's crazy. Why did this happen? You win with your quarterback. Like, there's no other point around it. I mean, the team who has the best quarterback in a game more than likely is going to win. And the Rams were 11-5 this season, 3 1 possession games. And, Goff, I mean, he's all right, but me, I'd much rather have Matthew Stafford. I think Stafford's easily one of the most underrated quarterbacks right now. I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks of all time. I know that might sound kind of crazy. You put a Super Bowl ring with him, I think he has a case for the Hall of Fame, definitely. And I think this I want to give it to the Lions, but the Rams aren't far behind. I mean, they were 11-5. They beat the Buccaneers, who are playing in the Super Bowl Sunday. They made Russell Wilson look like Andy Dalton in the playoffs. I mean, you have an improved quarterback and something else to look out for. Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, 2 targets for Matthew Stafford while they were with the Lions, are both free agents. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed one of those guys. And I'll go ahead and say it. Matthew Stafford will break the passing yard record this upcoming season. I mean, Jared Goff, I mean, he throws like 4,200, 4,500, something along the lines of that. Stafford has one of the best arm strength in the NFL, easily. He's right up there with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I think Stafford's going to have a great season. And to me, you look at top teams for the Super Bowl next season, the Buccaneers are a big question mark because you're not totally certain what's going to happen with Tom Brady. The Chiefs, I would say the Rams. I mean, I don't think the Bills are going to be quite as good. I'd be surprised about the Packers. But the Rams, to me, the one position they needed to get better at, they got better at. And I know they played in a really tough division with Seattle. I think Arizona will be good. And, San Francisco, they played pretty good considering all the injuries they had. But I'm very impressed, very intrigued by this trade. And ultimately, I think it may work out for the Rams by them winning the Super Bowl this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, this is perfect for Sean McVay, getting a guy like Matthew Stafford who is able to be a game manager for your team, something he's never had. He really had to walk Jared Goff and help him continue to learn the plays and learn how to actually run an offense. Matthew Stafford's a veteran. He knows how to run an offense, and he will do it to a high level. You mentioned how great his arm is. He's also one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the league, able to throw it very, very consistently and very accurate. And we know this team of the Rams, a lot of short passes, intermediate ranges, guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods who specialize in yards after catch. This is a perfect scenario because Matthew Stafford can get the ball to them at a very, very consistent rate. And that once they get the ball, they're able to get a lot of yards. So the Rams are starting to build a very, very good offense. Of course, they also have Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown who make a pretty good running back core. This is an offense that I can see being playoff caliber on top of an elite defense already.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. Just already, this is easily the best team Stafford's ever been on. And you mentioned Woods and Cooper Kupp. Those are 2 really, really underrated receivers that just aren't mentioned much. I mean, that's one of the more underrated wide receiver duos in the NFL. And I think it will be great for Stafford. And ultimately, I think it'll be, great for the Rams this season because I think Stafford can upgrade over Goff, and it'll be really interesting to see. I'm really, really excited for what the Rams do this upcoming season. But as we go back to biggest surprise team, you kind of mentioned the Rams. To me, I'm going to say the Packers because I did not think Aaron Rodgers would have this good of a season. He's going to win the MVP more than likely. The Packers were 13-3. Last season they were 13-3. 8 of their wins were by 1 possession. But I didn't really think the Packers were going to be as good this year. But you split half those games. You barely made the playoffs last season. I mean, that's 9-7 right there. And, the Packers, playing the NFC Championship game. Honestly, I didn't even have the Packers in the playoffs because I was unimpressed with Rodgers last year. And I know they won, but like I said, 8 one-possession games they won by. That's really, really close. They had the worst point differential for a 13-win team. I believe it was like the last 30 years or something insane. So I would give it to the Packers. I would also give lots of credit to the Browns as well. I did not think they were going to get more than 8 or 9 wins. They get a playoff win against the Steelers. And I mean, they nearly beat the Chiefs. I was very, very impressed with the Browns. And being Bengal fans, I know lots of people, laugh at the Browns, losing in the playoffs. But to me, I think the Browns have a really, really nice future. And then we talked about Super Bowl teams. If they decide to trade Beckham, which I think will be best interest for the team, and they get another piece or two on the offense side of the ball, I think the Browns are a sleeper team to go to the Super Bowl this season. But to me, my surprise team is the Packers, but not far behind is the Browns.
Yeah, a huge credit to Aaron Rodgers, especially, who, again, improved a lot this season. Had a lot of question marks with the weapons he had, but made Devontae Adams one of the best, probably the top wide receiver in the NFL this season, and managed to get guys around him like Marquise Valdez-Scantling and Big Bob Tonyan to be fantastic for them this season. So was very, very impressed with Rodgers' versatility and being able to work with an offense that had a lot of practice squad guys. And of course, you said the Browns. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic season this year, really improved throughout the season. And Kevin Stefanski's play calling was finally something the Browns needed to have to improve. And he came in here and performed very, very well, called plays whenever needed. Browns won some closer games, which was key to their success. And they managed to even pull out a win against Pittsburgh, of course, after that really high-powered first half for them. So a lot of credit to Cleveland as well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, both those teams were really impressive this season. We have, I forgot how you say his name, Nathan or something like that. He's in here. He does tons of interviews. Just the other day, he did one with Joe Johnson, and last week, I believe it was, might have been this week, he did one with Brian Urlacher. So he does like really big interviews and stuff. Got to see him in here. So our final topic here is MVP. Who would you give the MVP to?
Yeah, I think we already kind of touched around it throughout this podcast. I don't really think this can go to anywhere else other than Aaron Rodgers. Whenever I think of MVP, I say this all the time. It's the most valuable player to your team. If this guy was not on your team, would they be nearly as good? And for Aaron Rodgers, I think that if you take Aaron Rodgers away from the Packers, this goes from a top of the NFC team to immediately the bottom of the AFC, NFC, maybe in the NFL. Rodgers is so key to this team. He was their entire team, really. I mean, he helped give the ball pretty much all their weapons. Aaron Jones had a lot of success in the passing game because of him. Same with Robert Tonyan. I already mentioned all their weapons already. Devontae Adams had a huge season. I mean, if they had Jared Goff at quarterback, this is one of the worst teams in the league. Let's be real. So, I love, as much as I like Patrick Mahomes and respect Patrick Mahomes, he also has two of the top targets in the league, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. So if any quarterback's going to succeed, they're going to succeed with Andy Reid and the Chiefs. So I'm going to give it to Aaron Rodgers because I think if you take away Rodgers, this team completely falls apart. So he was definitely the most valuable player to their team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. You said, if Rodgers wasn't with the Packers, they'd have one of the worst records in the league. I think it's like the last 5 or 6 years, every single game Rodgers hasn't played, they haven't won. I mean, that just proves, how vital and important Aaron Rodgers is to the Green Bay, team. And you mentioned, Mahomes having lots of weapons. He had a great season, but you said he had Kelce and Tyreek Hill. If the Packers drafted T. Higgins and did not trade up for Jordan Love, I mean, we could be looking at a Packers and Chiefs, matchup this Sunday instead. I mean, Rodgers had limited weapons. He did have Robert Tonyan, but he made Robert Tonyan look like an all-pro. It's not like Robert Tonyan's some Gronkowski or Travis Kelce. Rodgers has molded him into a really good tight end. I mean, obviously, Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in the league. He's played great this year. Aaron Jones was good, but he was injured at times as well. But, I mean, Josh Allen played great. I mean, he had a phenomenal season. Definitely would have been a most improved player. But, Mahomes had a great year, but the weapons. But to me, I don't get how anybody can really debate it. It's really Rodgers, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I completely agree. Rodgers is far and away, in my opinion. Like I said, the only person I could really consider to say as a runner-up is Patrick Mahomes. And also, I'll give Derrick Henry a runner-up as well, just because of how well he performed this season with 2,000 yards rushing. But I think for sure Rodgers at least is my MVP. Best stats in the league, pretty much. Best film in the league. And overall was the most important player to their team and was the reason why they were first in the NFC and Super Bowl contenders up until the end.
So the awards today is Friday. The rewards will be coming out tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how ours translate to the actual thing. Earlier today, I did my Super Bowl previews. Make sure to go check that out. Speaking of Super Bowl, who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
I'm going to take the Chiefs right now. I'm not leaving out Tampa Bay. I really think if the Chiefs are able to into the fourth quarter within at least one score, they're going to end up pulling it out because I just think I trust Mahomes better. As for Tampa Bay, though, I think Tampa Bay definitely has a shot if their defensive line can cause a lot of pressure to Mahomes and we can have Brady with the ball in the last 2 minutes of the game. This could easily be Tampa Bay's game, but I'm going to give it to Mahomes and the Chiefs just because I trust Andy Reid's creativeness, and I think that he can pretty much outcoach the entire Tampa Bay coaching staff. So I will give it to the Chiefs in a pretty close game. I'll say final score 34-20, 34-30 is my final score.
I'll go 27-20, the Buccaneers. I know the Buccaneers, the first time they played, they were unable to stop Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had over 200 receiving yards just in the first quarter. Brady and Mahomes combined, I think they threw over 800 passing yards. Chiefs won 27-24. But it's going to be really interesting. With me, it's like I think Mahomes, he's a top 2 quarterback, but I still trust Brady more than I do Mahomes because you can't ever rule out Brady. I didn't think the Buccaneers would defeat the Saints in the playoffs. Buccaneers won. I didn't think the Buccaneers would beat the Packers in the playoffs. The Buccaneers won. At this point, he's going for a 7th Super Bowl ring. I just don't. At this point, it's hard for me to bet against Brady losing in the game.
It's unreal to see Tom Brady's career. Especially in his 40s, going up against one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Honestly probably the best talented quarterback we've seen in a long time in Patrick Mahomes. It's crazy to think. Brady's continuing to push the ceiling of how much we're going to remember him forever. He's the best quarterback of all time, like you said. Might even be the best NFL player of all time, especially if he wins the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, with the Super Bowl Sunday and with the rewards coming out tomorrow night. So can you tell some of the listeners where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, I've just recently changed my name on Instagram. Follow me at StripeHypeCincy. Make sure you go follow and like my posts down there. Also on Twitter, Blake Jude 714. I post a lot of football stuff down there, mainly scouting. It's kind of my thing. So go follow me on Twitter. That'll mean a lot. And also go check out my website, BengalsInsiders.com. I have a lot of dedicated writers and editors down there working to post updated Bengals news and updates as well as scouting reports. So please go check all of them out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you go check out Blake on the social media. It will be in the link in the description below. As you can see in the little ticker here, make sure you go follow me there. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next time on the Sports 2 Hunt Show.